Hey there, my name's Yasmin and I'm 32. I lived with someone who I would call crazy. And I don't use that term lightly either. My husband was truly something special as he would constantly berate and emotionally abuse me. This all started when he lost his job and had to rely on me financially to pay the bills. I work from home as a content creator and affiliate marketer. In this day and age, such jobs sell. And unfortunately, my husband was still of the firm belief that what I did for work was not considered work. He held these beliefs whilst maintaining the very accoladed and envied position as CEO for a firm. Unfortunately, he was let go of due to a very disheartening situation that led the company to completely go down and crash into flames. Ever since then, I've been holding down the fort and providing for my man, and it was during this time that he saw just how much money I was making. Even as an up-and-coming affiliate marketer and content creator, the amount of money I received was a lot. I would be making upwards of $15,000 per month, but Oliver didn't pay much mind to this when he was at his job because he thought that I wasn't making money at all. In his eyes, I was just his silly little housewife. Every time he would ask me for something, I could tell that his manhood was bruised, which I sympathized with for some time, as no one should be made to feel helpless and completely dependent on someone else. However, his bitterness was growing, and it became a complete turn-off not too long after he started his antics of being rude and disrespectful to me. What would make matters worse is that his mother, Beatrice, who he loved most in the world, had no idea of him getting sacked. She was still under the impression that he was providing most of the household income, but that couldn't be further from the truth. She too, like him, was under the impression that what I did for work didn't constitute real work. And so this was a lovely facade that Oliver tried to keep up. When I first sympathized with my husband's feelings of dejection and melancholy, I agreed to play along with the idea that he was still working hard and that I was still relying on him. But recently, I've been battling with the thoughts of just blurting out the truth because I genuinely don't appreciate the way he's been treating me as of late. Yasmin, just to let you know, Mom will be here in a couple of hours, so you need to prepare something for her. I think it would be better if you'd prepare it for her since I'm working. I have several deadlines I need to meet, and all you're doing is playing video games all day. Begrudgingly, he went to the kitchen and prepared a meal for his mother, and by the time he was done, she arrived. "Oh, my lovely baby boy, how are you?" "Oh, just wonderful, Mom. Had a long day at work today, and now I'm exhausted, but never too tired to see you." "And Yasmin? Where is she?" "Oh, she's just in the study, taking up a lot of space as usual for her work projects." They cackled like two villains. But little did they know I was already on my way to the front door when I heard the doorbell, and I heard everything that they were saying. Nonetheless, I held my tongue and strode in, acting as if I didn't just hear their hurtful commentary. "Beatrice, you look lovely as usual." "Yasmin, you look fat. Are you getting fatter? Are you pregnant?" "No, Beatrice, I'm not pregnant. I suppose I might have put on a bit more weight, but such is the life of a lazy housewife, I suppose. I mean, she just sits around all day while I go out and work. Of course she'd get a bit plumper, Mom." I shot him a death glare, and while Beatrice was laughing at the joke, he gave me a sheepish look, as if to say, "Please take one for the team." We proceeded to make our way to the dining table where the food had been set. But to my surprise, everything looked awful. The table wasn't set properly. It was set haphazardly, as if the person, Oliver, setting the table was forced to do it with one hand tied behind their back and their eyes closed. "Goodness gracious me, Yasmin! How could you set the table like this? It looks awful." For once in my life, I agreed with her. Biting back the urge to expose this secret, I let out a, "I must have just been extremely tired. My apologies." All the while looking at Oliver intently, trying to figure out just how someone could be that stupid. I pulled his arm, forcing him to come with me to the discreet lounge area so that I could talk freely. Why would you set the table like that? To teach you a lesson. Excuse me? What lesson? You tried to embarrass me by making me do the work in the kitchen, so now I had to embarrass you in front of my mom to show you that I'm still the head of the household and I'm still in charge around here. Just because you're the one who's making the money, it doesn't mean that you get to disrespect and demean me in this way. When I tell you to do something, you do it. Got it? He stomped off to rejoin his mother, leaving me with my jaw on the floor because I was completely shocked that I had just been spoken to in that way. If I'd known that Oliver would treat me this way when walking down that wedding aisle, I'll tell you that I would have turned around and walked in the opposite direction. After composing myself, I rejoined them. Yasmin, did you find this food in the bin? Why does it taste so awful? Honestly, with the way you treat me, I wouldn't be surprised if you were trying to kill me. Before I could even defend myself, Oliver interjected. Honestly, I don't even know where I found her, Mom. You'd think with spending all that time in the kitchen that she'd learn a thing or two, but no. They burst out laughing, and I just sat there, shocked that all of this was going down. The afternoon went on with us chatting casually on the table with occasional moments of beating down on my character as a lazy housewife. The insults was subsequently paired with endless praise for my hard-working husband. Little did Beatrice know. You know, I've wondered why Oliver hasn't taken me on a special vacation. With all that money you're making, you should take me somewhere. And it had to be somewhere lavish, like the Four Seasons. Feeling a little bit peeved and petty from everything that was going on between Oliver and me, I decided to chime in. Oh, how about a vacation to Dubai? It's not like we can't afford a night at the Burj Khalifa. Oliver shot me a look of hatred, and I shot one right back. But what happened next was the beginning of a very messy series of events. Oh, darling, this is a trip for working individuals. Poor thing, she probably won't understand. How do I put it in layman's terms? You won't be coming with us because, well, every day is like a vacation to you, right? It simply wouldn't be fair. Yes, Yasmin, it wouldn't make sense for the lazy housewife to go. They started cackling their evil and maniacal laughs once more, and at that point, I snapped. I stood up, hit my hands on the table to demand attention, and said, Actually, I do deserve to go on this vacation because I've been the one working tirelessly, day in and day out, just to provide for your selfish and inconsiderate son. Beatrice looked confused, and Oliver began to seethe. I don't care that you'll be mad at me. I have to speak my truth. Beatrice, your precious little boy, who is rich, had been laid off from work months ago. I've had to be working constantly just to provide. This table set that you're eating off of, I bought that with my money. The nasty food that was made, all from groceries that I bought with my money. And even the food itself was prepared by Oliver. He's the one who's been doing the cooking and cleaning. He barely does that either. It seems to me that he's the lazy housewife and not me. The house was completely silent, and then, after moments of deafening silence, something strange happened. Beatrice began to laugh. Oh my goodness, Oliver, you didn't tell me that your wife was a comedian? What? Oh, yes, Mother, she was just joking. You know, she's into things like dark humor and whatnot. You could have a career in stand-up, sweetie. That was absolute gold. I was stunned. I had nothing to say. Despite blurting out the truth, Beatrice was just too oblivious and so madly in love with her son that she simply couldn't believe what I said. To try and prove my point, I pulled up an article on the events of my husband getting laid off, but Beatrice didn't find this funny at all. Now, Yasmin, I'm no stick in the mud. I know how to get lit, as the kids of today say. I can laugh at a couple of dark jokes, but this is too far. How could you go as far as to make a whole fake website slandering my poor baby's name? That woman was too far gone. There was no way that I'd be able to convince her that her son was indeed unemployed and was relying on me for income. I tried explaining further, but she was visibly annoyed at this point. Enough! I won't listen to this any longer. You've taken things too far now. How can you slander your husband's good name and make it seem like he isn't taking care of his home? Just like you, Beatrice. I've also had enough. Oliver, tell her the truth right now. We both waited with bated breath for Oliver's answer. He finally said, I'm so disappointed in you, Yasmin. How could you take that joke this far? I was completely floored. I had nothing left for these idiots who were standing in my home. I simply couldn't speak. I was so shocked. In my state of complete disbelief, Beatrice began to yell and throw all sorts of insults in my direction, saying that I'm an awful housewife for making up a fake website that detailed my husband being let go. Do you know where you'd be without Oliver? On the streets. That's where. You have to take this down right this instant. I've been telling you that this isn't my website. It's a legitimate news place that shares local news. Nonsense. You're just trying to make him look bad. This went on and on into the late evening, and Oliver was backing up his mom, attempting to gaslight me into believing that I was the crazy one. What happened next shocked both of me and Oliver. Oliver, my baby, you can no longer stay here with her. You have to move into something better since she doesn't know how to appreciate her man. Let's teach her a lesson. I've been looking at places to rent on Zillow, and we have to go to this marvelous place on Palm Island. I think a couple of months away from her will teach her a valuable lesson. I could see the panic set in on Oliver's face. Palm Island? That was an expensive neighborhood. There was no way that he'd be able to afford that. Oh, Mom, I don't think we need to be that rash. There's no need to teach her a lesson. I think she's already learned it. I will stay here and take care of her. Without me, she'd be nothing after all. Right, Yasmin? I could see that he was looking for me to confirm his false narrative. He wanted me to play along, receive a final earful from his mother, and have our lives proceed as usual, with Beatrice under the impression that I do nothing while he brings in the big bucks. But I wasn't going to have that. Not this time. Oliver, I don't think I've learned my lesson. I'm ungrateful and I need to be put in my place, right? Fine, no problem. You and your mom can rent a place on Palm Island, and I'll be here, wallowing. Ugh, the cheek! You'll be sorry, Yasmin. Just wait. You won't enjoy the lovely house with us. You'll be stuck here thinking about what you've done. All of the blood from Oliver's face drained. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, but I know the real reason why he looked like that. He was doing mental gymnastics, trying to calculate how much he had left in his savings. I laughed internally, just waiting to see how this would all go down. Beatrice made it a show to call Harold, who was a famous landlord that she knew, requesting if he could especially allow her and her son to move into one of the listings she saw. She put the phone on loudspeaker so that she could flaunt and gloat. Harold, darling, remember that house I saw on Zillow? Is it possible if you could bring over the paperwork, as I would like to move in? Wow, that quick. We talked about this just days ago. That property is quite an expensive doll. Are you sure? I'll be moving in with my son. He's loaded. He's going to take care of everything, won't you, sweetie? Oliver sent over a curt and shy nod. Well, that won't be a problem then. Just send over the necessary documents and we'll begin the move-in process ASAP. After cutting the call, Beatrice insisted that Oliver shan't stay another night in this wretched and ungrateful household. Beatrice wanted to stay with Oliver in some luxury hotel until they were able to move into their house, which costs 5 figures to rent per month. Oliver did his best to stay, knowing that his funds were going to be depleted before his very eyes, but still refusing to just say the truth. It's a shame how someone can be so narcissistic that they wouldn't be able to admit a simple thing to avoid drama and chaos. Nevertheless, I didn't stop them. I even went as far as to pack up his belongings and send them off to wherever they wanted to go. Oliver was sending me text messages throughout the night, begging and pleading with me to say I was sorry so that he could feign feeling bad for me and subsequently come home to take care of me. But I wasn't having any of that. I told him that his pride would be the reason for his demise and that he should just come clean before he was too late. But my husband has a hard head and simply would not listen to reason. Some weeks of him spending time in a ridiculously expensive luxury resort with his mother, siphoning his funds, went by. At this point, his begging became incessant, and he showed me that his funds were depleting steadily due to his mother's spending habits. I'd often ignore his requests at this point, letting him suffer the same way that I had when I had to cover for his lying, and broke behind. Beatrice called me to gloat about the rental property finally being finalized. I continued to congratulate her and wish her all the best, and she was irritated that I wasn't perturbed by the situation. But she'd find out soon enough. Not only did Oliver have to pay the deposit, brokerage, and rental fee for the first month's rent, but he also had to buy lavish furniture to complement the new home. Understandably, he was struggling. But for some reason, he still refused to come clean. In another attempt to try and make me feel bad, Beatrice invited me over to the luxurious house to see just exactly what I was missing. I came and I was elated. The reaction she didn't want to see, as I knew deep down that Oliver was crying every night, attempting desperately to get a job to compensate for what he was spending. Beatrice simply couldn't understand why I wasn't being apologetic for everything, because she still believed that her son was in the right. But all of that would come crashing down during month 2. It had been a total of 4 months since I had heard from Beatrice and Oliver. It was as if they just disappeared off the face of the earth. I was doing my grocery shopping when I bumped into somebody who looked somewhat familiar. "Oh, pardon me." "Oh, it's no bother." "Wait, I think I know you. You're that famous landlord, right?" "In the flesh. A pleasure to meet you. You too look somewhat familiar. Would you by any chance know anyone who is named Beatrice?" "Why, yes, I do. How did you know?" "You look a lot like her son's wife. Her name is Yasmin, I believe." "Yes, that's me. How in the world did you know?" "If I recall, Beatrice and her son Oliver rented some property from me several months ago." "Oh yes, I'm well aware, but I haven't heard from them ever since they made the actual move." "How are they?" "You haven't heard from them? How strange. Well, you must know what happened at least." "Nope, haven't heard anything." It turns out, folks, that Oliver has moved back in with his mother. They are living in a cramped and unfavorable apartment complex because that's all he can afford at the moment. Harold went on to tell me that the bank statements that Oliver had sent to him were falsified, and that if his true bank statements were used, he would have been rejected on the spot. Harold told me everything. He told me how Oliver duped both him and Beatrice and how they were so shocked when they found out the truth. Rightfully, his mother berated him. She was so loud and destructive that neighbors were making complaints, and Harold couldn't have their bad reputation tainting the elegance of that neighborhood. When it came time for the second month's rent to be paid, I noticed that Oliver was being very nice to me, before telling me that he'd be late on the payment. This shocked me because Beatrice made it seem like he was loaded, and so paying rent of $35,000 per month wouldn't be an issue. But we were all hoodwinked. The funny thing in all this, I knew the entire time. "You knew? Why didn't you try and stop him?" "I did. God knows I did. But he was too stubborn to admit that he didn't have any money." Men and their pride. Well, he has now met his demise, after being found out it wasn't a good look. His mother tore up the whole house in distress, so he was unable to return any of the furniture he bought. He had to resell it at a significantly cheaper price, which was a big loss to him. Because his mother attempted to ruin the house, I had to keep his deposit. And on top of that, since he falsified his bank statements, he was arrested. I gasped, completely shocked to be hearing all of this for the first time. Yep, it was truly a series of unfortunate events that led to this crazy situation. Beatrice pleaded that I drop the charges, but the damages had already been done. Your husband spent 2 months in jail waiting to post bail. His mother had sold her house to pay his bail, and with the remaining amount of money that they could scrounge up, they opted to live together in some dingy apartment complex on the other side of town. Do you mean to tell me that you haven't heard from any of them? Nope, not one squeak. I'm guessing they're all just extremely embarrassed about the situation. But honestly, good riddance. They made my life a living hell. Please, could you tell me where they're staying so that I can pay a visit sometime and deliver some divorce papers? Harold jotted down the address of where they were staying, and we said our adios. I left the grocery store making a new friend and apparently gaining 2 enemies.